Good morning and welcome to this month's installment of the Public Safety Webinar Series for Emergency Management. This month we'll be talking about applications for the Command Center. My name is Chris McIntosh. I'm the Director of Public Safety Industries at Esri, and I'm joined today by Jeff Barani, Technical Lead for Emergency Management, John Petter, who's Technical Lead for the Disaster Response Program and Special Events Programs, and Tiff Pun from Esri's Dashboard team. We're really looking forward to sharing with you how you can use some of the applications that are available to you off the shelf to better manage your operations in your command center. So the purpose of the webinar series is to provide you periodic updates on how to use ArcGIS to support emergency management and disaster response operations from subject matter experts across the public safety team. We have a regular cadence of these webcasts, so you can plan ahead to schedule this hour on your calendars. It's usually the first Thursday of every other month, and our next topic will be best practices for sharing information with the public. These are recorded as well, and you can find the recording on the Emergency Management Industry webpage under esri.com. We vary the topics. Could be broad, like using ArcGIS across the entire breadth of the emergency management cycle, or it could be a specific application or series of applications like today. We also include updates from our disaster response and special events programs, who are very busy, unfortunately. And we want to hear feedback from you about things that you want to see or things you want to learn more about, because that's where we actually derive the topics that we use for these presentations. So on today's topic, applications for the Command Center. We're going to talk about Operations Dashboard, about how to build a web map and demonstrate how that can all come together. We're going to talk about the next generation Operations Dashboard, which we're very excited about. It's coming out later on in the year. ArcGIS Web App Builder and Situational Awareness Widgets, and the Story Map Journals. These are all the things that we see used repeatedly in incidents regardless of the scale, from local all the way to national in scope. So a little background. In my prior life, I was the Chief of Operations for Virginia's Emergency Operations Center. And we had an incident occur on a Sunday afternoon, and like incidents normally happen, it happens when nobody's there, just the watch is at the Operations Center and the rest of the command staff is dispersed doing whatever it is that they do in their off time. I was a couple hours away in Hampton, Virginia, when we got notification that a windstorm had come through the state, and we were in a drought condition. The wind blew the trees blew down the power lines, and the power lines sparked, starting a whole series of wildfires across the Commonwealth. That day, 1,322 wildland fires burned 25,000 acres, and we never were able to catch up to the problem. By the time the command staff got back to the Operations Center a couple hours later, we wanted to know where the fires were. Simple geospatial question. And we were never able to catch up. We weren't able to catch up because we didn't have good applications, good geospatial applications to dynamically in real time gather information and display it to decision makers. We were having to use legacy GIS procedures to build each map independently, print them out, and provide them to the command staff. And that takes a lot of time, using time-late data, and we were always about 3 to 5 hours behind the actual situation. And in that dynamic situation like wildfires, that doesn't cut it when you're trying to get ahead of the problem. So in response to that, we started a program that some of you may have heard of called VIPER. And VIPER is a acronym for Virginia Interoperability Picture for Emergency Response. It was based upon a Flex viewer, and it was the one of the best implementations of the technology at the time, because it allowed real information to come in from various sensors, from crisis management systems, from weather, those kind of things, and display those to provide some situational awareness. But it had two fatal flaws, and they were both a result of where technology was in 2008, 2009. The first fatal flaw was it was a common operating picture. which meant that it tried to be everything to everybody, whether you were in ESF1 in transportation or in fire and 4, or if you were in logistics, it was the same picture. So it meant that there was a lot of drop-down menus, a lot of clickology, a lot of training to configure it properly for what your mission was and what you were trying to accomplish. That led it to being very bloated, having way too many options, not enough simplicity for the surge personnel to come in and use intuitively. The other fatal flaw was it was hardwired, meaning in your planning cycle you had to identify all the information that you may want to need to see for all different types of incidents that you may have to deal with, and hardwiring those connections ahead of time. It was very difficult to add information if a situation deviated from what you had planned for. Well, as we all know, incidents always do that. So if you wanted to add something new, it took the GIS staff quite a long time to add that, and meaning that they were not able to keep up with operational cadences. But fortunately, technology has evolved past by the Flex Viewer and what we were using in 2008, and now modern applications for the command center have solved both of those problems. And a great example of that occurred in Philadelphia during the Democratic National Convention and the Pope's visit last year, and California Office of Emergency Services has implemented this across all of their operations. And the Boston area has implemented these around the Boston Marathon and also their ongoing emergency operations. And what these allow for is applications designed for the use of the individual based on their function. What a person in ESF1 needs to see is not the same as what a section chief needs to see. So you can configure the application separately, and they can look at things that are pertinent to their individual roles and responsibilities. You can also add information as it becomes available, or as our situation dynamically changes. And that information, once it's added, is reflected across multiple applications instead of one common operating picture. So all these applications share information. You can add information, yet they're configured and presented in a way that reflects the mission, the role, and the responsibility of the individual. Also, in these cases, it allows them to share information across jurisdictional and geopolitical boundaries. In the Boston scenario, there's actually 3 operations centers that work together to manage that event. They can share information with each other. That information is reflected in the various applications, and then that information can be stop shared when it's no longer relevant. So technology has moved to another level, solving the problems that were prevalent in the Flex Viewer days. And so Jeff Bronny is going to go in and start to show you how to make all this work and make all this happen using modern applications for the command centers. Jeff, over to you.
Great, thanks Chris. Good morning everyone. The first app that we want to talk about for the command center is the operations dashboard. So this is one of the key apps. Many of the screenshots that you showed that were shown in these last set of examples and what a modern command center might look like. And really this is kind of the key app that we see. It's really easy to configure, and John will show you how to do that here in a few minutes. We can have a lot of kind of key performance indicators and reporting of metrics that are presented for you in the operations dashboard. And it works on a multitude of devices and is even extensible if you need to build additional functionality. Today there's really kind of 2 options to work with the operations dashboard. There's a Windows desktop app. It's a separate, lightweight application that you can use to not only author your operations dashboard views, but also to view them on multiple screens, if needed. We can also take advantage of those views that have been configured with the Windows app and look at those in a web-based version of this app that works on multiple devices. And what's important about this is we can also provide that view and allow anonymous access to allow many people to have visibility into these operations dashboards views that you create. So a couple things to think about when putting these together. One, it really kind of consists of a map and a set of widgets or information panels that display different types of information, whether that's charts lists, counts, whatever the case may be. And we can combine these together, compose these for either single displays on a single laptop or tablet display, or take advantage of multiple screens if you have that luxury, and spread information across multiple areas to really convey a lot of information quickly. So really the workflow, and you'll see this here in a minute when John demonstrates this, is it all starts with a web map, as we've talked about in many of these webinars. We'll author the web map first, bringing in information from our operational layers like incidents, significant events, shelters, whatever the case may be, combining that with, if we so choose, with live feeds, many of the live feeds that are available for Esri or partners like NOAA or the USGS and many others. We'll a couple of key tweaks in the web map to make sure that the information can get up to, maintained and stay up to date and displayed appropriately for the view. Then you'll create your operations dashboard view using the Windows tool, fine-tune a lot of the elements and the widgets that are available to you, and then you can share that with others in your organization, or using the web version, make that available more broadly and even publicly accessible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague John Petter to talk about this in a little bit more kind of operational details and how this was used in a recent event, and then you'll see a live demonstration from John and kind of pulling this all together.
Great, thank you, Greg. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. So first we're just going to take a look at the operations dashboard. The operations dashboard is a great tool in the fact that it can pull metrics out of your web map. So the web map is great to show a depiction of what's going on, but if you can actually pull the metrics and the numbers out from that web map, it gives a much better picture to folks in a command center. So the dashboard you're looking at right now, this is just some example data that we put together just to show the concept of how a dashboard can look and work. On the left-hand side here, I have some summary widgets, and this is for my my sample 911 incidents. So for instance, I might want to know how many critical calls are going on, how many high priority calls in an incident, and how many total calls we've received for the day. All of that is easy enough to pull out from this web map and actually display those as metrics on the screen. I've got some USAR operations going on this hypothetical dashboard here, and again, I'm using a summary widget right here to pull out the number of victims from the data in the web map, and I'm using a graphing widget down the bottom here, which is actually interactive as well. As I click on it, it'll actually drive the map and show where this information is actually residing. I brought some pods into here, points of distribution. I've got the obligatory BAS Pro shops, and as I click on each of these, it gives me the information for that pod to the right. One of the big things that people want to know is how much money am I spending right now on points of distribution. They're awfully expensive, and they're one of the first things we want to try and close. So here I can actually configure another widget which is telling me the total cost of weekly spend on these pods, and again, it's just pulling out an attribute from this layer in the web map. On the right-hand side, I'm actually integrating some team tracking. We've got Jeff and I working here. We're in the green status. If I double-click on Jeff, it'll actually zoom to his location, and you can see Jeff's actually in Colorado right now. But it'll actually track him and move him around the map in real time if Jeff were to get out and move. I think he's got 10 inches of snow right now, so I don't think he's going anywhere. We can again pull out the metrics for the active workers, how many are there, and we can even do assignment status. So this is just a sort of example of what a dashboard might look like. But I wanted to spend some time and actually show you how this works and how to put it together. For some of you on the line, you've probably built lots of dashboards. You're pretty familiar with this. For others, this might be new. And even if you're familiar with it, hopefully I can give you a few tips and tricks that you might not have seen before. So what drives the whole dashboard here is a web map. So to do that, we're going to switch over to web map view right here and show that I've got multiple layers of information. So if I click on the legend view, you can see I have my pods, I have my incidents, I have 3-on-1 and social media configured, and I have a USAR survey configured in here as well. These are just standard layers which are present in your web map, in your web WebGIS, whether that be portal or online. So these are feature services. Again, they can be hosted feature services or they could be coming from a server. Some of these may even be instances coming from other systems such as Intermetic's WebEOC. Maybe your pods and your shelter layers are coming directly from those in real time and being refreshed on your web map. A couple of things you want to consider on the web map is the dashboard is going to be dynamic. You want it to be real-time updating. You don't want to have to touch any of the data. You don't want to have to move the dashboard to refresh anything. So some of the things that you want to consider here are, if you click on the little ellipsis next to a feature service, you can see there's a refresh interval. And it's very important to set a refresh interval on these layers so that they do automatically refresh. Otherwise, the data will be static until you move the dashboard, and it forces dashboard to do a refresh of the screen. So that's one thing. The other thing you want to consider as well is on the pop-ups. Configuring the pop-ups in here and making sure that if it's a numeric field, that you've got it configured correctly with the right format that you want to use. So for instance, if I go into that pod layer and bring up my pop-up, right here for cost, I want 0 decimal places because I don't think we need 00 on a pod that's costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I do want to use my thousands operator, so I made sure to configure that on cost. Any of these other ones as well, you want to make sure that you configure these, so if you need multiple lines for the contact, you do that. The other thing to consider is that the opening screen of the dashboard will be the default extent of your web map, so what your web map is showing. So some of the things I like to do is in the bookmarks, I like to have a bookmark which shows me the overall picture, which is the first sort of home picture on my dashboard. So when I go to save, I always make sure to use the bookmark and then save my web map to make sure it saves not only the changes I've made to my layers here and my refresh rates, but also the extent. If you're going to be using a dashboard over multiple areas and you know where some of those incident areas are, this is a good way to add bookmarks as well, so you can quickly zoom into areas of interest, and these bookmarks will carry over directly right into dashboard when we build our dashboard out. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this, and what we'll do over here in dashboard, we'll see if we can recreate some, if not all of this in our short time here this morning, and I can show you how it works. A quick drive around the other parts of the dashboard. We do have the ability for base map, so I can change my base map from a light gray, which is really useful for showing incidents, and it pops the incident out from the background. Streets is great if you actually need to use to understand where things are, but as you can see, some of the incidents can get a little lost with the streets. So quite often I'll start with either a light gray or a dark gray canvas, but give the user the opportunity to change the dashboard they want for day use in the Op Center, night use in the Op Center, or navigation. As I mentioned, the bookmarks came over and those got pulled in automatically. I've also got the ability to turn layers of data on and off, so I could turn my workers on and off on my map. And there's some other simple tools in here, including measurements. So let's create a brand new dashboard and see how this works. When I create a new dashboard, as Jeff mentioned earlier, there's sort of 2 types of dashboards. You've got the single display and the multi-display. Since we're focused on the command center today, we're going to start with the multi-display, but I'll show you a couple options, including the new beta dashboard, which is coming. So we'll start by picking the multi-operational display and create a new dashboard. So the first thing we want to do is add the widget of a web map. That's what's driving all the data which is going to be coming and used in this dashboard. So I'll click on the map and OK, and it's given me the choice of what web maps that I have in my organization to use. I have some others in these folders, but I've cleaned it out to make it simple today, and this is the web map that I was just showing you. So the first thing Dashboard app will do is read all the data layers which are sitting inside that web map. So you can see that all those feature services that were in there, or other feature layers that are in the web map, are being brought forth, but none of them are checked. There's some important things to see in this dialog, though. When I'm clicked on the pod, you'll notice it says dynamic every 30 seconds. And this one, incidents 911, has no automatic update on it. That's because I've forgotten to add that refresh back in my web map. So this is an easy way for you to find out, and you can easily go back and correct this and add that refresh to it. But you can click through the layers and see that I have a refresh set on most of them. Some of these don't have it set, and that's because I've neglected to do it in the web map. So clicking on these gives me the option now of adding these as accessible data layers to my widgets. So I'm going to select pods, 911, 311, and social media. In fact, I think I'm going to select just about all of these as data accessible to me. I don't need the team sectors or the flood extent as data layers because there's no metrics I really need to pull out of those. On the right-hand side here, we can see that I have a section for filters. So filters enable me to add additional data streams which are filtered layers of data to my widgets. So for instance, with 911, if I click and add a filter here, I can actually look at the data in 911. Excuse me. And you can see I have severity and I have the status, whether it's an open or closed call. So for instance, if I know that on my web map I want to display critical incidents that are open and provide a count of that, it might be useful to have a filter to drive that, that information. So under query, first I'll just name it 911 critical. And I can select here that the type of incident I want is a critical incident with a status equal to open. I can now add that as a filter and click OK. So now you can see that I've not only got a 911 layer which represents all of the information, but I also have another filter here which is filtered data coming through I can pass to my widgets of just 911 critical. If I add another one really quickly, and we'll just do 911 high, and we'll change this to high, status equals open, and add that one. I won't spend too much time configuring these. I think you get the idea that I can configure them that way. Also, if you have date time, you can configure date time queries in these as well. So on my workers feed, I think I have a date time in here. So I can actually configure now edit the dates in here relative to absolute date, or I can actually do it to relative to current time. So I could show incidents that happened within the last hour or incidents that happened within the last 5 minutes. This is something we used in the Ironman dashboard, which we'll show you after my demonstration here, where we wanted to make sure that if a medical incident hadn't been attended to for several minutes, that it alerted on the screen, and we actually created a filter to do that using these time filters. These are pretty powerful, and it's interesting to spend some time in here configuring the time filters, both relative to current time and absolute date and time. So once you've spent some time and actually got these filters in place, we'll click OK, and that'll now add the web map to the dashboard and make all those layers available to me as a widget. Sorry, as a feed for a widget. So this is the web map, and it's pretty plain, but it's a fully interactive web map. One of the things here, if I click on the buttons, sorry, on the points on the map, I'm not getting any functionality here. I can't see a pop-up, and I can't see some other pieces of this. This is something else we can still go back and configure. I'll click on the little configure button right under the title here. It takes me, oops, sorry, this guy, takes me right back to where we came from when I was configuring the data feeds. Notice there's another tab here called Capabilities. This is where I can add capabilities to the web map itself. So one of the things I might want to have is I want to be able to show a pop-up. I might want to be able to show coordinates because I need to know exactly where things are. So let's choose, say, USNG, so I can have the USNG coordinates available to me whenever I'm clicking on things in the map. Now if I click OK, you'll see now that I have a show pop-up available to me, and it's got a pop-up capability, and also when I move the mouse in the bottom left-hand corner, I have the US National Grid available. Adding some other functionality to the dashboard. Now I will click this little configure under my map tools. Here's where I can bring in the functionality of base maps. I can bring in the bookmarks and the map contents as well. Notice there's a configuration for map contents. If I don't want people to be able to turn off some of the layers, I can actually prevent them from doing that. I can just turn off, say, the team sectors and the flood extent, and they will not show in the layers button drop down to actually be able to turn it on and off. So if I do need to limit people's ability to sort of dock to the map because there's important information that I know that they need to see, I can leave those turned on or uncheck them so that they can't mess with them. Find places is a useful one as well, which uses Esri's geocoder to do a find, but you can also add additional. In here we can do an MGRS or UTM or USNG in here to actually find places by. Once I close this, I've now got these little widgets available to me. I have my base maps, and I can easily now switch my base maps. These don't persist between sessions. The persistent base map is the base map that's coming from my web map, not the one that's currently selected in the dashboard. So when I reopen the dashboard, it'll go back to that light gray that I have defaulted. Again, I have my bookmarks, and these just come in dynamically right from the web map. So if I go back and I change bookmarks, add bookmarks, next time I open the dashboard, it'll pull those bookmarks right through, and I'll have an easy configuration for those. And then here's my drop-down list, which I allowed us to turn on and off. So there's my workers turning on and off. That's me in the Esri campus right now. So that's sort of the basic configuration, but now pulling metrics out of the map. Let's look at those 911 calls, and let's look at some widgets. So if I click on the widgets menu, I can add a widget, and it brings me up a whole selection of different widgets. Anything from a bar chart to a gauge, indicators, a legend, but one of the ones I find extremely useful here is the summary widget, because that enables to deliver numbers and metrics right from your web map. I click OK on the summary widget, and I click the drop down for the data source. These are all the data sources that came in from the web map. And you can see the 911 incidents. It's a little feature layer. It's yellow like our feature services are. And then underneath you'll see two funnels, which are the filters set up on that. So for instance, if I click on 911 and I title it, I've got some options in here. I could count how many total 911 calls there are. I've got some appearance, and I could have my total 911 calls red, and we'll just click OK. And it's saying I've got 20 total 911 calls. But what I wanted to know was how many critical calls that are open right now. By simply changing the data feed, I can now choose my 911 critical filter, and that will filter out that I've only got 5 critical 911 incidents. So that came, I'm going to show you again just where that came from under the configure. When I was doing the 911 and I configured these two filters in here, this is my critical open, and this is my 911 high incident. So if I went back in here and labeled this, I've now got the ability to drop it anywhere I want, and you can see the little squares that allow me to drop it where I want to on the dashboard. This is one of the big differences between the multi-screen and the single screen, is your ability to have more complex layouts. So I'll move this one over to the left, and then I can just resize it slightly. Let's just add a couple of other widgets in here. So we'll do another summary, and this time we'll do 911 high, and we'll choose that as our feed. And we've got that, 911 high, count, okay, and I'll drop that underneath this one. So you can see I can start to stack and build, and that summary widget is really, really useful for doing things like that. One of the ones we talked about as well was the pods. Pods are one of the most expensive things that you can need to keep open during a disaster. So if we add another widget here and what we'll do is choose a different one. We'll choose a list widget, and this will provide a list feed, and I'm going to point it to the pods. You can see I've got a little preview on the right here. So there's my pods. I can provide some different display options. So I've got the location here, and I've got a list of all the fields that are coming from there. So this one is the status, whether it's open or it's closed. And so I can have that easily accessible in my list widget. One of the interesting things on the list widget, and one of the really powerful things, are feature actions. So this is what actions do I want to be able to pull up dynamically when I click on these from my list widget. So showing the pop-up is useful. Highlighting is very, very good. Notice I've got a little configure button right here. So I'm going to choose to pan when I click on this option. I'm going to scroll down a little further. I've got a zoom to. This is a really good one, the double click. I'm going to select highlight, and when I click on the little configure button, zoom to. So this is saying when I double click on this feature, I want you to highlight it and zoom to it. We'll click OK on this widget, and this is my list widget. So as we configure those feature actions, where's my Bass Pro Shops pod that's open? I double click on it. There it is. It zoomed my map automatically and pinged it. We also gave the ability to do a show pop-up, and I can show the pop-up right there, and I can see that it's a type 2 pod, and the cost of that is $250,000 a week. So let's go ahead and dock this widget down the bottom. And I'll show you a couple of other widgets that are useful that to emulate the dashboard I showed you earlier. There's a feature details. One big difference you're going to see on this is when I click on the drop-down, not only do I have the feature services that were available and the filters that were available, but down at the bottom here, it's actually showing my pods, my misspelled pods right there, and I can choose the selection from that list widget to drive the data of this widget. Easier to see than to talk about, but let me just show you. When I click on this list widget now, the data feed for the details widget is being driven off the active one down in here. So this is an easy way to be able to click and see who's the contact for this pod. Let's drop that down inside here. So now we've got a list of open pods along with the information associated with it. Now let's pull the cost out. For the cost, I'll use the summary widget again. And on the pod, let's do the pod cost. This time we're going to not use a count because I actually want to be able to pull values out of here. So we're going to use statistic. The widget has already identified what fields are eligible to be used for a statistic, which are only going to be numeric fields. So it's pulled the cost. I don't want the average cost. I want the sum, the total cost of all the open pods. I can drop that in and do that in a summary widget. Just pop that and move that around to the right. Or one of the other interesting widgets here is to use a gauge widget to say, hey, I want to know when my cost of my pods exceeds $1 million. I need that to be alerted to me because that's a big deal and my city manager wants to know about that. So in the gauge widget, I can again use the same feed. I can again use the same sum, but now I've got some additional options here. I can put target ranges and threshold ranges in. So let's say my maximum value is 2 million, and I want a threshold value of 1 million. Now I've got a gauge that's dynamic that will actually alert me. I can also change the colors of this gauge. So on my target range right here under the appearance, when it's below the threshold, maybe we want it green because it's okay. As soon as it hits that threshold and needs alerting, I want something on my screen to turn bright red, because that's now drawing my visual attention that the pod costs are increasing. We've opened more pods up, and that's getting important. That's a lot of money. So you can see I can simply pull all this information right out of that web map and provide metrics to that. The other one that I showed you was another list widget which came from Workforce. So I have a Workforce project set up in my organization, and I have those layers added to the web map. I can now take a look at where all my workers are simply by using a list widget, selecting my workers feed, and again I could have added a filter this to filter just my active workers, people that are working, and not show all workers. You can see we've got 2 active workers and 1 not so active worker in the middle there. Again, on my feature actions, I'm going to have a double click action to highlight and zoom to the feature. I can also add a pop-up to this one as well. So this is another list widget. So if I double click on me, you can see that I'm in the Esri campus in Redlands. I can zoom out to give you a bit of perspective. And then Jeff here, he's working in Colorado. All I have to do is just double click on him. And as these are dynamic layers, if Jeff was out and about, we'd actually see him moving. So I can add my workers right here as well. So this could be folks out doing damage assessments, your USAR teams, you're tracking where they are, what their assignments are, what they need to do. And the last widget I'm going to show you out of this selection here is going to be a pie chart. So I can choose a pie chart, and on this particular one, we'll take a look at assignments that are actually being done in the field. So here's some, oh, someone just added a pod, and if you just saw that dynamically, my pods are now 1,030,000, and the widget there changed from green to red. So that's another pod that opens. Now I just need to know, shoot, I need to go notify the city manager that I'm spending too much money. And down here on my list, you'll see that I've got my Esri HQ pod is open. So I can add a pie chart, I can add appearance, I can add labels to my pie chart, and I've got an interactive pie chart that can also go with this as well. So you can see how in just a few minutes we've just built out and pulled some information right from the web map, found out where our latest pod is at Esri HQ, been alerted to changes in values, and built out a dashboard. So that's sort of the basics and the basic framework for building out a dashboard with the widgets. So what I'm going to do is just save this one, and I'm going to call this my demo operation view. I'm just going to save that. Now I'm going to show you what happens when the command center isn't stationary. Situational awareness doesn't nowadays just sit inside the command center. You need that in the field. And I'll show you 2 ways of doing that. One will be to create a standard single view and open it in a web browser, and then I'll show you a glimpse of the new dashboard. So I file and save as, and I save this one as a single display dashboard. So I'm just going to call this one single. It'll save this in my organization. It'll allow me to do more edits here. You'll see that my pane is a little bit more limited. I've just got panes here on the left of data, but it's going to pull all the widgets in from the other dashboard that I had with all the functionality. And I can go in here and edit, and I can move the widgets around, and I've got the capability to move things. For this demonstration, I'm just going to save this one and show you where it ends up. I'll go back to my organization, into my content, and just sort of refresh that. So here is my operation view single. I can actually choose to open this in a web browser. When I choose to open that in a web browser, it's now portable. What I need to do is share this URL, and by creating a dashboard with the web app, I've now got a portable dashboard that can be used in the field by any of my operators that have permission and access to that data through their logon. So here's that same dashboard, and I can change the theme and step through it. The other really exciting thing we have is from my basic operation view, I can change and open the new beta dashboard. So this is the dashboard that's coming, and we'll talk about this a bit more shortly. But this is what the new dashboard experience is going to look like. It's going to be all web-based, browser-based dashboard. You'll be editing in the browser. This is a beta version right now, so you don't have all the controls yet. But you'll notice that I've got all the widgets in all the places that you would expect. This is now completely hosted in a web browser. I can also click the upgrade button right here, and I can now upgrade this to the new version, and it'll now actually save this in my organization, and I've now got a dashboard I can share out. This is something that for everyone on the phone, we're actually hoping for you to sign up for the early adopter program for this dashboard, so that you can provide feedback and give us some guidance on what you need and what you want to see out of the next generation dashboard. Some of the key things we're going to have in here is much better configuration on the widgets as far as colors, symbology, labels, all those sort of things, much more improvements in filters, but it's going to be an ongoing process. We hope to have the first one out fairly soon, but you can see what we've just done today is build one dashboard, save it as another, which gives us a web view of that dashboard as a single screen view. Didn't require any coding, still fully functional, and then from there we've also now saved that out as the new beta dashboard. So I think that's as much as I wanted to go into detail today on what we had. Jeff, I think we'll step back to you.
Great. Thanks, John. John, did you want to spend a few minutes talking about Ironman and all and some of the new ops dashboard stuff? Or
yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. So Ironman World Championships in Hawaii, 140.6 miles of course to keep track of, over 2,000 athletes plus 50,000 spectators out there. Keeping track of everything in the command center, which is set up in a small conference room in the hotel you see in the top right-hand picture. Operations dashboard was critical for this. We have medical incidents that happen on the course. We also have other course incidents, bike incidents. Need to keep track and make sure nothing gets dropped. So Jeff, if you can click on the next slide, I think we have an animation of this dashboard. So in the top left, we see the green square right now. That is saying that we've got 0 medical incidents that haven't been touched for 5 minutes. So when you have a medical incident on course, the subjects get put into a van and transported unless it's a critical incident. But you need to understand that they're being taken care of. So we put a timer on this particular widget on the left, and below it the list widget. So any incident that hadn't been touched in 5 minutes was being filtered and displayed with a red splat showing that, hey, we need to pay attention to that. When it came back to the green square, we knew that everything was being taken care of. The other ones we had was bike incidents and medical incidents. We had a feed coming from our med tent on the right-hand side to provide the med tent census, and that was currently people being currently treated in the med tent, anyone that has actually been transported off-site to a hospital facility, and the total incidents logs for this particular event. So this dashboard was sort of front and center. It was being driven by data coming from dispatchers and also real-time data. We had all the assets on the course. We had bike, medical, and course assets, as well as pro athletes being tracked, and we could keep up with them on the course. So this was sort of a real application of using the dashboard to manage a large event. So we're mentioning a little bit about the next dashboard. So this is not final. Things can change in this new dashboard, but this is where we'd like some feedback. Authoring dashboards is all going to take place in a web environment. You won't need to install an additional component as you do now to author your dashboards. We will be keeping and running in parallel both dashboards for some time so that you don't have to switch over immediately. Most of the widgets are coming over. We're modernizing them. Additional filtering, a whole new chart library of chart engines, very exciting new charting capabilities. A new homepage to manage your views, which is great. And so hopefully we're going to get this out by sort of dev conference Q2 time frame. But we'd like for everyone on the call to to go take a look at this and provide feedback. So instead of the displays we have right now, where if you need to display on a web browser, you have to save it as a single screen view, and you have to open it into a web browser. This is going to be one single unified dashboard. There's no more single screen, no more multi-screen. It's just operations dashboard. It'll be designed to support unattended and interactive displays, so it'll have all the same interactive capability I've shown you and you expect from the current dashboard, but also some other really interesting unattended displays. I don't want to give away all the secrets right now, but there's a lot of new stuff coming for the unattended dashboards. Widget configurations are going to have a different user interface and a user experience to them. You'll have a lot more control over your widgets now. Again, symbology, colors, labels, the date filtering widgets are going to be much improved. You can see as an example of that on the right-hand side. So expect a lot more functionality to be coming out from all the different widget configurations. Say the support of an in clause would be great for filters. The bar charts, one we've been wanting in emergency management for a long time, is the ability for on a damage assessment to show the right colors with the right levels of damage on properties, and you'll be able to set those up yourself and decide what color, what elements have on the screen and how they look. And again, a whole new charting engine which is going to provide a huge amount of new functionality. Big one for me is the support for labels, vector tiles, and anything that's coming in Portal, in 10.5, or ArcGIS Online will now be automatically pulled through and supported. So for instance, the new release of online supported Arcade, a new labeling and symbology language, that'll all be supported by a dashboard as well. Say the vector tiles is a big one for quick navigation. Streaming services will be supported, and that really helps with all that big data and real-time data coming from GeoEvent, and you better put multiple maps into a single dashboard. The collaboration with Workforce, I showed a little bit of that today, where your Workforce project, you can pull those directly through into your dashboard, so I can now track my workers in the field, understand where they are, and then you pair that with something like GeoEvent that puts geofences around workers going into dangerous areas, and you can get an alert in your dashboard as well. And lastly, sort of what's coming? Well, we're going to be supporting related records and relationship classes. Query layers at last will be supported in dashboard, which to me is pretty huge. The interactive filters, again, pretty exciting things. 3D scenes, so you'll now be able to have a 3D dashboard. So imagine being able to have a dashboard where you can actually have the map in the middle as a 3D scene, but still be able to pull metrics out of that so that you display metrics within a 3D dashboard. I think that's a very exciting new feature coming. And again, new charting engines, so multi-series charts coming along with single series. And here's where I'd like every one of you on the call today that are interested in dashboard to please go sign up. We'll be sending this out afterwards as well in a note to everybody, but this is the Operations Dashboard Early Adopter Community. We encourage you to sign up. You can take any of your existing dashboards and open them in the new beta dashboard. Some of the functionality isn't there yet, but it's coming, and we're adding more and more to it every week. But we're really looking forward to your feedback. You can help drive the dashboard that you need for your operations center by supporting this program and jumping on the early adopter. Jeff, I think that's enough for me on dashboard. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, a lot of great experience that you've got, supporting, multiple events, and even I learned some new things as you were kind of taking us through some of the functionality of Operations Dashboard. So a great view into how to configure it, how to really kind of pull out some of the value in your data and present that in the Operations Dashboard. So thank you, John. A few more things that we wanted to share with everyone today, just a couple of other kind of key apps that we think are important. So the Web App Builder for ArcGIS is another key app. So when you got your web map, you can go to the Web App Builder tab and use that series of builder experiences to configure separate applications. And this has a lot more tools that are available to you, for over 40+ widgets, including editing. The other key thing here is this can be configured, is responsive in design. So you can have situation awareness and take that with you using the web app builder by being able to use this on mobile smartphones or tablets or whatever the case may be. It really is a WYSIWYG, experience. It allows you to configure apps, very powerful apps, without, coding. This is available, has been available as a part of ArcGIS Online for some time, and is also available for portal deployments as well. This can be extensible, and there's an existing library of widgets that you can draw from. You need to get the developer edition to be able to host this on your own servers if you choose to add additional capabilities, leverage the widgets that are out there that are being shared not only by the community but our own kind of solutions team and other and raster team within Esri. There's a large set of additional widgets that are out there and available if you want to build and add in more functionality. Another key thing here is from our solutions team. They have a situational awareness configuration of the web app builder. And we'll share this link with you in the post show notes. It's got a great incident analysis widget that lets us get answers to questions like who's impacted and what's impacted after event. And I'll show that to you here in just a minute. One final app that we wanted to talk about from the Command Center perspective is the Story Map Journal. This is great for briefings. It's great for providing, summary of a lot of information, pulling all together and perhaps sharing this with directors, other executives in your organization, perhaps even elected officials. We also see this being used very heavily for briefing purposes as well. And this is inside the Story Map Journal, you can actually embed the operations dashboard and have even different views of the operations dashboard that are very mission focused and specific to the area or problem set that you're working on, whether that's transportation, logistics, mass care, whatever the case may be. So we see these two apps as a great set of tools to complement the operations dashboard that John showed you, already. So this is a quick example that I wanted to show you, the web app builder. This is we've got it here configured with a notional shake map of San Andreas earthquake in Southern California. And if we wanted to find out the details of an impact in a certain part of our jurisdiction, we can simply, using the situational awareness widget here, click on the map here and get summaries of some of the information that is in this area. What are the current weather conditions? What's the population? Based in, this is being drawn from the block group information. How many bridges are impacted in this area? Schools, hospitals, shelters. This is really quick to configure with your own data, and it's just one example of some of the widgets that come with this particular application that you can configure very quickly. Also note here the U.S. National Grid coordinates are being displayed here with our cursor location. So this is available in the hosted version of the web app builder and something you can very quickly configure with ArcGIS Online. As I mentioned, this can be extended and leverage some of the other developed widgets that are out there. One of the examples that I wanted to highlight is the U.S. National Grid display widget here that is available from our solutions team. And as I zoom in, it's actually drawing the U.S. National Grid on top of our map and changing, depending on our scale. This is configurable. There's some knobs and dials that you can turn to make the U.S. National Grid display work how you'd like. And then the last example, I wanted to show a story map journal here real quick that we've configured for briefing purposes. So here in the story map journal, I can simply flip through the pages that I've configured, and it will show maps or apps or web pages right here in our story map journal, and this is really helpful for briefing purposes. And again, as I've mentioned, we can embed in different operations dashboard views right here inside of the application to help kind of bring out key pieces of information and have that accessible right here in our view. So again, story map journals are very helpful ways to roll up information within inside our command center and perhaps use that for briefing purposes. A couple last things here in closing. There's been some recent updates to the ArcGIS for Emergency Management solution templates, and this blog post highlights some of the things that are new. We'll share these links with you in the post show notes. And additionally, there's a new feature service template for incidents and some additional documentation on some of the widgets that are available, including a new Try It Live site. From the disaster response update side, remember we have a common group where we share examples from recent events, and the fires in Gatlinburg, the Sevier County structure map has recently been added to the collection here. Also, as a reminder, we retired some of our live feeds that come in from our tech marketing servers at the end of last year. Don't worry, all of that content's been transferred over to ArcGIS Online and the Living Atlas. Just need to make sure that you update your maps and apps, accordingly with all the content that some of you may be using previously. If you were unaware of these, there's a great set of feed and content that are available from ArcGIS Online that you can use in your maps and apps today. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chris to close us out here in today's webcast.
Thanks, John and Jeff. So one thing I want to make sure everybody's aware of is you probably already have access to all these applications. With your current ArcGIS licensing, you get all of these tools. If you just have desktop licensing, you get ArcGIS Online and all of these apps. These are all off-the-shelf, download, and configure. One of the things that we see repeatedly through the disaster response program is folks not using the technology that they already own to its maximum extent. So please check your GIS leadership or contact your Esri representative if you're not sure if you have the entitlements and if you're not sure how to find these applications and get them up and running. So next steps. Please go and take a look at the resources presented in this webinar. As I said, they are all available to you. Our next webinar will be on March 2nd, Best Practices Sharing Information with the Public. All of these webinars are recorded and posted online, and there you can see the link at esri.com. Contact us if you have questions, ideas, suggestions, things you'd like to see, you need more information, you don't know who your account manager is, any of those things, please contact us and let us know so we can help you. Follow us on Twitter. We post a lot of information, both about disasters and things that are happening and real-world implementations of these technologies, and also announcements about events and software updates and product updates and places we're going to be and all kinds of things that you can find and may be of interest to you. The National Security Summit and the Users Conference are coming up fast. They're in July 8th through 11th. Early bird registration is open now. So please plan to join us in San Diego. There will be the ops theaters, the demo theaters, all those things that we've done in the past where we will go through demonstrations of all these things in detail. And of course, all the team will be there to answer your questions and work with you on where you want to go. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tiff. And Tiff, if you could read a few of the questions. We have about 3 minutes left. If you could read some of the questions that came in that maybe others on the phone may share.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have about 3 common questions that we receive a lot in this session. So the first one is, can you use a spatial filter that only shows features within the map extent, or can you use features on the map to serve as like a filter to show other features? So the answer is yes, you can use you can filter your features using the current map extent. To do that, you go to the map widget and then configure it by creating a filter and say, I want to show features within that extent, and that will create a filter data source in dashboard. And then when you create other widgets, you just make sure your widget consumes that filter data source, and it will work like expected, that it will show features only within that extent. So the second question that I saw a lot is, will the desktop dashboard eventually go away, and should people start migrating to the new dashboard? For the first part of the question, yes, the desktop operations dashboard will eventually go away. However, the new dashboard is still under development. So at this point, we will recommend people to continue using the Windows dashboard for their production environment until the new dashboard is more stable and has more functionality. And once the new app is ready, you will have some period of time to do the migration from the old app to the new app. So no rush on that, but we do encourage you to join our beta program. So the third question is where to find the new app. So there are two ways that you can easily find the new app. So the first one is if you have existing operation view, you can when you log into your RGS organization and look up for that view, you can find the Open in Beta dashboard button and then open it in the beta app. Or you can also go to our doc site, http doc.rgs.com/en/operations-dashboard. And then from there, you can join our beta program. So these are the common questions that we received so far.
Okay, thanks, Tiff. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for their time. We hope to see you on the next webinar in the series, and if you have any questions, please make sure to let us know. Happy New Year, everybody, and please stay safe. Thank you.